All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going deep into one of the most secret, most powerful texts in existence, the Sifra DiTzniuta, or the Book of Concealment. And let me tell you, it presents a totally radical story. Not of a perfect, flawless creation, but of a catastrophic, cosmic failure, and the divine reboot that came after. It's a story that basically defines our entire reality.
Okay, let's just start with this one single cryptic line. Now, this isn't just some nice poetry. This is the inciting incident for our entire universe. It's describing a time before any kind of equilibrium, a first draft of creation so unstable that its core forces, what it calls the primordial kings, they emerged, they reigned, and they immediately died. This was version 1.0, and it was a spectacular failure.
So to really get how we went from that cosmic systems crash to, well, our reality right now, we're going to journey through 6 stages. We're going to look at the concealed blueprint for creation itself, then the chaotic first version, the divine fix that was put in place, the new architecture of reality, and then, this is the really cool part, how our own souls fit into this system, and finally, what our role is in this whole ongoing project of cosmic repair.
First things first, we have to understand the source code. The Sifra DiTzniuta isn't just a book you read. It's described as the actual blueprint of divine thought. It's the raw data before it ever got compiled into matter or energy or existence as we know it.
Now, what's so fascinating is the name itself, the Book of Concealment. It's intentionally hidden, right? It's meant only for the tzniut, the modest or the concealed ones who can actually handle its secrets. This isn't just a bunch of information. It's like getting a look under the hood at the very engine of reality.
So, how does the divine thought actually become reality? Well, it unfolds in these distinct stages. It starts as this unknowable will, called keter. Then comes chokmah, or wisdom, which is like a flash of lightning, a sealed book that contains all the potential. Next up is bina, understanding, which is what opens that book and starts to read it, to structure the idea. And finally, you have dot, or knowledge, which integrates and broadcasts that idea, making it real. This whole flow is the absolute basis for everything that comes next.
Okay, so if you've got this blueprint for divine thought, how did it lead to a total catastrophe? Well, the first attempt at creation, what we call the world of tohu, or chaos, was basically a flawed beta version. It had immense, unbelievable power, but zero stability. The Sifra DiTzniuta describes this failed world through this incredible metaphor of the 7 kings of Edom. Now, these weren't actual monarchs with crowns and castles. They were pure, raw, isolated divine forces. Think of them as raw attributes, like pure kindness, or pure severity, or pure beauty, which are all aspects of what the Kabbalists call the Sephiroth, the fundamental channels of divine energy. These kings supposedly ruled and then immediately died because they just couldn't coexist.
And this is just brilliant because it illustrates the fundamental flaw of tohu perfectly. The text says these forces were back-to-back. They couldn't gaze at each other face-to-face. What does that mean? It means there was no relationship, no communication, no integration at all. It was all just raw power, fierce and totally isolated, with no way to balance each other out or sustain themselves. I mean, it was a system just destined to fail.
7 of these divine energies, the lower 7 of those Sephiroth we just mentioned, were the ones that shattered. The vessels, the containers that were created to hold this immense divine light were simply too brittle, too alone. They just couldn't handle the influx of power.
And this event, this whole thing, has a name, the shattering of the vessels, or Shivarat HaKelim. The world of Tohu was this realm of immense, dazzling, blinding light, but its structure was fundamentally unstable. The result was a cosmic systems crash on a scale that is just impossible to imagine.
Think about it in modern terms, right? It was like an unregulated power grid that was suddenly surging with infinite energy, causing a system-wide blackout. Or maybe a server that's flooded with immense amounts of data but has nowhere near enough bandwidth to process it. Each function was running on a single thread with no APIs to connect them. The result? A catastrophic, total, system-wide failure.
So how do you fix a completely broken universe? You don't scrap it, you reboot it with way better technology. And this brings us to the solution, the world of tikkun, or rectification, and the key piece of divine engineering that made it all possible. The core concept behind this whole fix is the makala, which is an Aramaic word for a scale or a balance. Now, this isn't a physical object we're talking about, but a divine principle of equilibrium. It's the technology that allows all these opposing forces to coexist and create a stable, sustainable system. So the Makala organizes all of the divine energies into this brilliant three-column system. On the right, you've got chesed, or kindness. That's the force of pure expansion. On the left, you've got gevura, or severity. That's the force of contraction and limitation. And then crucially, right down the middle, you have tiferet, mercy or beauty, which acts as the balancing principle, mediating between those two extremes.
This quote from the Gra's commentary on the ancient Sefer Yetzirah just captures it perfectly. You've got the right scale and the left scale, but the system only works because of the tongue in the middle that decides and brings balance. Without that central pillar, the whole thing would just fly apart all over again.
So this new, balanced system allowed for the creation of much more complex and stable structures. We're not talking about simple vessels anymore, but these integrated divine personas.
These are called partsufim, and you can think of them as the upgraded components of reality. So instead of those fragile, isolated vessels from before, the partsufim are these complex configurations of all 10 sephirot working together in harmony. They're dynamic, they're interactive, and they can finally relate face-to-face, which forms the stable architecture of our rectified world.
Let's go back to our tech analogy, because it just works so well. The world of Tikkun is like a really sophisticated reboot. The three-column system, that's a multi-threaded architecture. The middle column acts like a load balancer. The partsufim are like relational APIs that allow different systems to communicate. And dot, or knowledge, is the central processing unit. What's the result? A stable, scalable operating system. Our reality.
The role of doth, or knowledge, is the absolute key that makes this whole system work. It connects the raw, unformed potential of chakma with the developed logical structure of binah. Without doth, there's no connection, no integration. It's the consciousness that binds the whole system together.
Okay, so that's the cosmic story. Fascinating stuff, right? But why does this ancient blueprint actually matter to us, right here, right now? Well, because the structure of our own soul perfectly mirrors this divine architecture, and our spiritual journey is all about navigating this very cosmos.
And the parallel is unbelievably direct. Our nefesh, our vital soul, it corresponds to the world of action. Our ruach, the emotional soul, corresponds to the world of formation. And our neshama, the intellectual soul, corresponds to the world of creation. We aren't just living in the cosmos, we are the cosmos, in miniature.
And get this journey continues even after this life is over. The ancient Midrash Hanhelam describes the soul's ascent as a passage through a series of checkpoints. The first is the cave of Machpelah. The second, the gates of the Garden of Eden, which are guarded by cherubim and a flaming sword. And the third, the gates of the celestial Jerusalem. Each one is a spiritual test.
You know what? Let's reframe this entire epic with a video game analogy. Tohu? That was the glitched early access version of the game where the power-ups were way too strong and they crashed the system. Tikkun is the stable, patched final release. The soul's journey? That's you, the player, leveling up through this cosmic map. The gates? Those are checkpoints, guarded by powerful NPCs. And our work of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, that's us, the players, actively patching the remaining bugs in the game.
And this brings us right to our ultimate purpose. When the vessels of Tohu shattered, they didn't just vanish, they fell. And in falling, they scattered these holy sparks of divine light all throughout our physical world, embedding them in literally everything that exists.
So this makes our job really clear. We are cosmic repair technicians. Through our actions, through living with intention, through finding the sacred in the most mundane things, we find those scattered sparks and we elevate them, returning them to their source. This isn't just a story about the past. It's an active, ongoing project. And that leaves us with a final question for you. If the universe is a work in progress, what are you here to rectify?
Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through the Pardes. We really hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week. If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please do like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.